Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So right now we're going to talk about chapter 4, cash management. So first of all, what is the motive for holding cash? So there's a few motive. First of all, transaction motive. It means that whenever we want to do a transaction between such as a payment or perhaps a purchases, we need cash most of the time for the transaction to occur. So we need to ensure that we have sufficient amount of cash to pay any expenses that we are incurring right now. Second, precautionary motive. Perhaps we we expect unexpected. Perhaps in the future there might be a downfall, a depression in economic state. So by holding cash, we can ensure that we have no need to rely on outside source of finance to finance our current investment in the future during economic state or whatever. And then lastly is speculation motive. Perhaps the management speculate that in a few months there's a company that will go down. So speculation motive state that we perhaps we try to speculate that with this cash we can take advantage of an attractive investment opportunity, which is to purchase that company. 1 minit dah. Okay, and then after the motive, so we're going to talk about cash flow forecasting. Most of the time, whenever we're doing budgeting, for example, for right now we're talking about cash, right? So we need to create a cash flow forecasting to ensure that we know how much. So we know that the detailed forecast of cash inflow and outflow, and it's going to incorporate both revenue and capital item. Since whenever we talk about cash flow forecasting, we're going to talk about the expenses of cash. Even though it's capital, even though we know that in SOPL, statement of profit and loss, any expenses that were deemed as capital will not be actually in SOPL. However, for cash flow forecasting, since we are trying to forecast in detail how much cash will be available in the next cycle, operating cycle, we need to include all of our cash expenses and also cash return. So we're not going to include any of our capital gain. For example, revaluation. Since revaluation is a capital gain, you won't be receiving money in the actuality, since it's a accounting gain. Because revaluation will not give you money directly. So that's one of it, is for the example for cash flow forecasting. So right now we're going to talk about method of easing cash shortage. Because sometimes whenever we create a forecasting, perhaps we can forecast that there will be a shortage in cash. So in order to ensure that we can ease up this shortage in cash, what we do? For example, first of all, we can delay non-essential capital expenditure. Perhaps in original forecasting, we feel that we need to purchase this XXX machine in the next year. However, whenever we forecast in detail, we can see that by purchasing this machine, our expense, we will have a shortage of cash in the next month. So perhaps we need to value whether these essential purchases or not. If it's not, perhaps we can discuss with the management whether we can delay the purchase decision or not until the perfect time where we can purchase it without causing cash shortages. Second, accelerating cash inflow. Perhaps most of our cash is tied up in our receivable, so perhaps we can chase our receivable much faster, and also we need to chase any receivable that has past fallen due date. For example, sometimes client will pay us late, so we need to chase them faster. Reversing past investment. For example, we are currently in cash shortages, so how are we going to reduce these shortages? For example, perhaps we can reverse our investment decision. Perhaps last year we are trying forecast to for 20x7. So perhaps in 20x5 if purchase asset, and in order to decrease the shortages in 20x7, perhaps we can sell the asset that was purchased in x5. So okay, and then managing cash surpluses. Okay, so even though we want to have a cash in our hand, we want to ensure that the cash that we hold is on the optimum level. So why? Because whenever we hold the cash in our hand, the cash won't grow. So we're going to lose out on the opportunity for growing our money more. So that's why whenever we have a much more money than what was the optimum level, so most of the company will try to invest the excess level of money perhaps in treasury bill, term deposit, certificate of deposit, or commercial paper, maybe, perhaps. Okay, and then mathematical model for to find the optimum level, the maximum level, and also the minimum level of cash. Whenever we talk about maximum level, we're trying to talk about the most cash that we can have. When we talk about optimum level, we're trying to talk about the most perfect level of cash that we should hold. In which that this level, we will not lose the opportunity to grow our money even more. We will not lose our revenue due to not. We will not have an insufficient level of cash. Okay, so first of all, we have Bowman models. We're not going to talk about Bowman models since this note is going to talk about the theory part of the calculation or of the chapter and not the calculation. And also the Miller-Orr model. So you can revise it by yourself. Sorry. And then working capital finance. The approach taken to finance the level and fluctuation in the level of net working capital. So first of all, to understand, we're going to divide our capital finance into three different types, or asset to three different types. So we have non-current fixed asset, permanent, and also fluctuating. Whenever we talk about non-current fixed asset, we're talking about non-current asset that are going to that are fixed in our company. For example, machine and whatnot. Permanent current asset, we're going to talk about the baseline of minimum, the baseline of asset that we need to operate our business. For example, the baseline of inventory needed, the baseline of receivable and whatnot. And fluctuating asset refer to the variation in the current asset during a period. Perhaps, for example, the differences between the current asset in the beginning of the year and also the end of the year, beginning of the month, and also, for example, due to seasonal variation. So we need to strategize on how we're going to finance our capital. First of all, there's a few methods. It's either you can use the aggressive versus conservative. So whenever we talk about aggressive, we're going to use a lot of minimal long-term finance for working capital, which means that instead of, for example, for an asset of $10 million, instead of relying on a single $10 million loan note for 10 years, perhaps we will rely on 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 3 years loan note, 3 years debt, bank debt to finance our machine purchases. Also, and another one is conservative financing strategy, in which that major purchases of asset, high level of long-term finance for working capital, in which that will finance our working capital using long-term debt, which is, for example, a 10 million bank loan for 10 years. So that's why lah. And also we have a matching capital finance strategy, which is that a long-term finance will be used to finance our non-current fixed asset. Short-term will be used. We're going to use a matching strategy, like in which that a long-term will be used for non-current fixed, while short-term will be used for our fluctuating and also our current asset. So treasury management, function of treasury management. There's a 4 functions of treasury management, which is liquidity management, risk management, funding, and corporate finance. So liquidity management is to ensure that we have a lot of we have cash, as what was stated in the earlier chapter. Funding is about the suitable bank, capital management, and whatnot. Corporate finance, finance strategy. Is a corporate finance strategy is appropriate, investment appropriate, and how potential acquisition acquired. Risk management, this is going to be covered in later chapter. So that's all for chapter 8, chapter 4, chapter 8 pula.